flight, we are go for launch. T minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. This is Navigating AI, hosted by Rich Wilson, guiding business leaders through the new intelligence era. Let's explore how AI is reshaping business, leadership, and the world.
Welcome to Navigating AI, where we are guiding business leaders through the new intelligence era. Today's episode is titled Simple, Compliant, Human with Wendy Jufri. She is the founder and president of Wendy Ellen Inc., the outsourced HR partner trusted by small and mid-sized organizations across Western Canada and beyond. Wendy is known for her grassroots common sense approach. She helps leaders simplify people management while staying compliant and human. She's also the co-author of The Only HR Best Practice You'll Ever Need. Welcome to the show, Wendy. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for having me.
When you look at your clients, what do you see them overcomplicate the most? And what is the simpler way you like to approach it?
So what they overcomplicate is the paperwork, typically, of bringing someone into a company. And that's everything from any onboarding document, even policy, really. There's so many simple ways to do it with a very, very uncomplex, simple human resource information system. They're inexpensive, they're web-based, easy to use, easy to set up, and it solves a lot of those problems.
So what is the first thing you usually cut or try to streamline? And how do you know if it's working
So
for
when
them?
we go into a client, very often we say, have you thought about putting in a simple HRIS, Human Resource Information System? We have probably 4 that we recommend quite regularly, and they're just very simple. We can set them up for the individual companies. We can take care of getting the employees set up. And once you got that done, it cuts not only people time, but paper.
Let's build on that. Once leaders start simplifying HR, the next big question becomes, who should actually handle it as their company grows? So how do you help them decide between bringing in fractional HR or hiring their first in-house HR person?
So, typically, if you're a startup or you go into a company that's smaller, we suggest fractional, because why would you hire a full-time HR person? You've got all the obligations around mandatory contributions to government programs, severance, like all that, when you can hire fractional HR. So typically, that's what we do. So of course, I'm all for fractional HR. There does come a point, though, typically around 125 people, where you need somebody on the ground that has some HR experience, more from the administrative side. And, we still help companies a lot of times in that situation on some of the more complicated human resource issues. But when you get over 100, you might start looking at bringing someone in that can sort of look after when people join the company, make sure their desks are set up, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, that's helpful. And once a company knows who is handling HR, the next question is, what should actually happen first? So if a small company brings you in and you have about 90 days and a lean budget, what has to be in place by the end of that time?
Well, you want your basics. You want your basic policy. You want to make sure the employee offer letters are standardized. At that point in time, typically we try and introduce an HR system, because the sooner you get that in place, then everything's online. All the documents are in one place, and it makes everything easier from the employee standpoint and the HR admin standpoint. But definitely you want to make sure you've got your offer letters standardized. You want to make sure that you've got some set of basic compliant policy, so people know what they're entitled to, what they have. So those are kind of the main things that we set up right off the bat.
Okay. What are the 3 essentials that you want to see in place by day 90?
By day 90, you want to, I guess the one I missed one, you want to make sure your payroll's up and running and working properly. You want to make sure you have all the everything from a compliance standpoint in your policy, and employees have signed that. And there's a few that you do need to have. An example of one, people often don't think this is mandatory, but it is. Employees need to know what leaves, paid time off, unpaid time off they're entitled to, especially from a government program standpoint. They're not typically paid by the employer, but employees have a right to know what those leaves are that an employer has to grant them time off for. So just some things like that. You just want to make sure that you've got all the signed documentation as well. So we always go through and look, is everything signed? Because we've gone in and they have, oh yeah, we have contracts, but they're not signed. And we've actually had experiences where things have gone sideways. They've gone to a lawyer and they go, well, it's useless because there's no signature. So it's sometimes those little things that sound insignificant, but can become significant at a later point.
Okay. So once those essentials are set, a natural tension comes up. How much structure is enough without overwhelming people with policy? And you talk about having as little policy as possible.
Mhm.
Where do you still draw the line and say, this really does need to be formalized?
As I just said, legislation. Anything that's legislated,
Mhm.
you need to have in policy. And then the other things that are nice to have, which don't need to be complicated, is talking about sort of what your day-to-day operations look like around, obviously, vacation. Do you have any paid time off for personal time? Is there an expectation for very strict hours at work? Is there flexibility? So some of that cultural stuff you really need to put on paper so everybody has the same information. Otherwise, it often causes problems and people think, oh, somebody's got special treatment. So some of those basic, we call them, time at work. Like, what's that work day look like? That's always a good thing to have in a policy. But I mean, we have clients that policy books are over 100 pages. For the base that we're talking about, that's small to mid-size, that's really unnecessary. It really is. They should be probably around 25 pages. Some people integrate safety, which you can do. That's such a big thing right now. It's really probably wise to have that separate.
So with that said, can you share one policy you almost always trim or rewrite to keep it simple and practical, or sometimes even just remove it altogether?
Well, it's kind of in your area, benefits. Like, a lot of people put everything to do with their plan in their policy book, which there's no need. Typically people have a benefits booklet or something like that online. Just refer to it, because then you can make changes without having to worry about anything else. Some people put that stuff in employee contracts, which is a definite no-no, because you're making promises that really tie your hands if you want to make changes to your benefit program. So things like that, safety, once again, refer to a safety manual. Some people go way overboard on all that around confidentiality, code of conduct. You can really simplify those. And so a lot of that kind of legislative stuff that needs to be in there. Privacy is another one. You could do 50 pages on privacy, but you really just need to say that we follow the privacy laws of whatever. And here's a very brief kind of outline of what that means to you. So there's a lot of places you can trim. And also, it needs to be written in like you're talking to the person. It makes it more personal, more casual, as opposed to thou shalt. I read one the other day and they might as well have just said, thou shalt be a good employee or else. Like, it was just I'm like, we need to change this. And there's such a casual environment. It didn't match either. That's the other thing. Really needs to match your culture.
It might have been really old too with that language in there.
Well, I
A
won't
bit
talk about it.
outdated.
It wasn't written by an HR person. I will leave it at that.
Got you. You really have such a grounded way of keeping things simple and human. And that ties directly into the next big topic I want to
Mhm.
go into. People are wrestling with AI. For a small HR team, where do you feel AI actually helps in a safe, useful way? And where do you want things to stay completely human?
So, I mean, we use AI. We use AI all the time to
Mhm.
research legislation, sometimes case law. If we have to prepare or create a new sort of letter that we haven't written before, we may ask AI 3 different ways, and then we'll pick and choose, oh, I like that, that applies, that doesn't apply. So I think anything that you are looking for information on, I think it's a great tool. I mean, you could get a lot of this before just with used your search engine that was, Google or whatever other search engine you used. You could get some of this information. Chat's far more advanced. But so I think there's a really positive way to use that in HR as in other industries. But I think anything to do with actual people should still be people, human.
Can you give an example
Well,
can
let's
of
just
one
say,
workflow you would not wanna automate?
yeah, your one-on-ones, your employee feedback, your meetings with your leader. You can do the process automated, which a lot of
Mhm.
companies do, and that's fine, but then take the results of that process and have the conversation. The minute you exclude the conversation, you might as well exclude the process because the real benefit to any of those review systems or review processes are the face-to-face conversation, because that's where the real nitty-gritty comes out. And that's where you get your best information and your best learning opportunities, your best teaching opportunities. So I really hope the day doesn't come where you've got, a bot talking to an employee, because well, I can't never say never, but it likely will not be the same.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
Practical, but still human.
Yeah.
And right alongside AR, and right alongside AI, another place people often get stuck is compliance.
Mhm.
So let's talk about that for a moment. What are the compliance blind spots you see over and over again? And what are some quick fixes that actually stick?
I think it's a little in the HR world, the people world. There's not a lot of compliance blind spots, I don't think, but the big one that I've seen really come back to bite some of my clients, and I'll explain why, is the whole psychological safety side of occupational health and safety. So within occupational health and safety, there's certain mandatory things you need to do to show that you have a psychological safety workplace. And, I've had clients where this has come in for various reasons to do full-blown audits. And that's one place most companies are lacking the attention to. So it's super easy fix: training once a year and having the right policy. So it's very easy fix, and you can check that box on an audit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if a CEO only has 60 minutes this week to work on this, where would you tell them to focus?
So if they only have 60 minutes a week to focus on their people side of the business, like, I'm sure there's plenty of other things they would have, but if they want to focus on the people side, it'd be talk to the people. Depending on the size of the organization, talk to the leaders and talk to them about talking to their people. Just keeping in touch, keeping in tune. That goes in that will benefit you in all areas of HR. If we're talking back to psychological safety, that's where you're going to pick up some of the things that may not be going so well for people. You'll just feel the mood, but leaders need to talk to their people. Good, bad, there's ways to have those conversations. And they need to make sure their people understand that they're there for them to talk to as well. That's really the whole point of that.
Okay. So if compliance gives you the safety net, hiring is usually where the rubber meets the road for growing companies. And for busy managers who do not live in HR, what is your simplest hiring playbook from intake to decision?
Well, hire somebody. Hire somebody to do that if it's possible. It's not always possible. I'd probably say 90%, 95% of HR people plus business people hate hiring. I think it's one of the most difficult things. There's so much people can be over prepared for because of AI, because of all the information. So it's very difficult. Um, I think enlisting help in one way or another to sort of get through the messiness of the resumes. There's so much, and I don't want to say junk resumes, but depending on the role, Yeah, there is a lot of that. So I would that's where I think you would make the most benefit in listing help on sort of the more basic roles or maybe lower administrative roles where you're not really looking for a skill set that's hard to find. The roles that have a skill set that are hard to find, then I think it is actually worth hiring a search consultant for that. Someone that really knows how to screen out for certain things. Because
That's
it's a funny industry, the whole recruitment side, because when there's a lot of candidates, it takes time. When there's not a lot of candidates, it takes time. On the first side, it takes time to go through the resumes. On the second end of it, when there's not a lot of candidates, it takes time to find the person with the right skill set. And so it's having the networks, having the connections, those kinds of things to reach out to people.
that's super helpful. Now, our listeners always love real world examples. So let's go there next. Can you share a story where simplifying something in HR really unlocked results? What changed and what was the impact?
So I'm going back to what I've probably mentioned 3 times isn't a human resource information system. We have a client that streams and streams of paper, some stuff scanned on a SharePoint site, people coming in and not filling out all the paperwork when they join. And it's quite a high turnover client as well. So we're implementing a very simple HR system. Once they're at the stage of hiring, an email's fired out to them, all their paperwork is at their fingertips. They have to sign, read, send everything in, and they start. And everything goes through to payroll. So it basically took at least 3/4 of a job away from that organization, and it didn't take a person away. Now that person can be redeployed to do much more meaningful work, as opposed to scanning paperwork into the SharePoint. And it was ridiculously paper heavy. And this is a medical type of organization. So there's a lot of paperwork around the stuff they have to sign to join that company. So the amount of time it saved, and now everything is at the CEO's fingertips, the clinical manager's fingertips. It just saves so much time, and everybody feels a little bit more relaxed that everything's in place.
Okay. Before we wrap, I would like to shift gears for a moment.
Hmm.
You've built a trusted client base,
Hmm.
and I think our listeners can learn a lot from how you approach the business side. What is working best for you right now in terms of marketing channels?
So I've been in this business, well, my own business for over 20 years. So I have built a very strategic network. So I belong to a couple of really good CEO groups. So of course, with those, they have a reach in their network as well. So I think strategic networking has been a very positive experience for me. The other thing, believe it or not, is Google Ads. I do a very small budget for Google Ads,
Hmm.
but it has really seemed to pay off. I think part of the reason there's not a ton of competition in kind of what we do, probably 6 of us, in my area. So there's not a lot that operate the same way we do. There's some way bigger ones that have a total different model than what we do. So I think those 2 things really have been the key to my marketing success.
Are there any channels that you've tried before and dropped them? And what told you that they weren't worth it?
I don't know that there's any channels that I've tried that I've dropped. I have introduced some online courses. I'm never going to compete in the online course market. I know that it's massive, but we have some online courses that are very inexpensive. And so quarterly, we'll send out mass email to my client list and to previous clients discussing the courses. Here's the link. So one, that keeps me in the front of people.
Mhm.
And two, we get people signed up for our courses. And it also then typically after I send those out, I get a few emails from older clients. We're looking at someone to help with this, that. So that's another channel that I never had before. And I'm not a huge fan of mass emails, but because I only do it quarterly, I don't think I annoy anybody. and and it's information, right?
Right. Okay.
At least
Now,
nobody's told me they've annoyed that I've annoyed them. So
I think people would tell you if you
I
did. So
think so.
I think you're safe.
I think
So
so.
a lot of consultants live on referrals. Is that true for you as well?
I do have a strong referral base for sure. I get a lot of clients that maybe they hired an HR person full time, didn't work out, so they come back to us. So I have a lot of repeat clients, which is to me the best testimonial to what we do.
Absolutely.
Referrals, but honestly, the biggest driver of our business is our website.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, with regards to referrals, they can be tricky. How do you make
Mhm.
sure the referrals you get look like the right kind of clients for your practice?
Well, typically, like I said, they're either previous clients, so they know exactly what we do. And my
Hmm.
consultants honestly haven't changed in years. I'm very fortunate. My consultants stick around, which I don't think is very common. So they know us, they know my consultants if they've worked with one before. And then referrals from other people, typically they understand what we do. So I have haven't really had that problem where they're not a fit for our business.
So, for any business leaders that are tuned in and thinking, we could really use Wendy's help, what's
Mhm.
the easiest way for them to connect with you or learn more about your firm?
Our website has really everything that we do in all different ways. It's got our courses, it's got our subscription, it's got our list of services from fractional, it's got my contact information. So through the website, email, phone call. I actually am maybe one of the rare people that actually answer the phone. So you want to chat? And I often get people too that will pick up the phone and they have just a one-off question and I'm happy to help people. That's what sort of that's what spreads the word and brings those referrals in as well.
So, can you share your web address with our
Yeah,
listeners?
it's www.wendyellaninc.com.
And Ellen is ELLEN.
ELLENINC.ca.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks, Wendy. That's fantastic.
you're
Simple,
welcome.
compliant, human. Thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Rich.
Mission accomplished. This is Navigating AI. Subscribe for more insights into how AI is transforming business, leadership, and the world. Until next time, stay curious, stay ahead.